Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lindsay Lopez, and here is just a video case study on TD Bank's money laundering fraud. Background and case summary. In October 2024, TD Bank pleaded guilty to violating the Bank Secrecy Act, other known as the BSA, and conspiring to commit money laundering fraud. Crimes occurred ranging the years of 2014 to 2023, involving the failure to file required currency transaction reports, while ignoring $18.3 trillion in transactions. This bank became the first major U.S. bank to plead guilty to such charges, historic makings of paying $3 billion in penalties and fines from employees. Outdated anti-money laundering systems, as well as known internal compliance failures, was a big reason as to why TD Bank was charged with a guilty charge. Court stated TD Bank became a criminal by making services convenient for criminals. The bank was very easy to allow so many things to happen under their nose that it just seemed like something that was very easy. So criminals were constantly going back and using this bank to do their fraud. Here is just a timeline ranging over the years. Started in 2014 after the 2008 financial crisis. TD was stated to be using outdated anti-money laundering systems, which was emerging in risks for consumers. Then moving down between January 2018 to April 2024, it was noted that 18.3 trillion unmonitored transactions were happening. So this is just transactions that were just kind of happening under employees' noses, suspicious activities that most bank employees would have taken into consideration and made like a big red flag, but instead they were allowing these suspicious transactions to happen. From 2019 to 2023, 670 million cash deposits into fraud accounts in Colombia were happening. These were banks overseas that were used in Colombia, also again with the employees allowing these transactions to happen. Certain transactions, especially done overseas, shouldn't be happening, or when you go to a bank, they definitely raise flags as to where and when and how much money is being deposited or taken out of into certain accounts. So over the years from 2019 to 2023, it just seems like employees were not paying attention to these fraud accounts, which just led to 670 million cash deposits to be lost. Shell accounts are just fake accounts that are being used. So they're just fraud accounts that were being used between Colombia and the United States. Lastly, in October 2024, we reached the historic settlement of TD where they were pleaded guilty. Now, political economic analysis. Capitalist pressures led to minimizing compliance costs, where TD was prioritizing saving money over following the laws that they were required to follow. Outdated systems, ignoring mandated updates to anti-money laundering tools cause such prioritizing to saving money over following the laws that they were supposed to. Like I had mentioned before, employees were ignoring very high suspicious activities and allowing many transactions to go through. No senior executives were charged, although fines were paid, and the banks did remain operational. Only low-level employees were the ones that took fines and lost their jobs. Whereas usually it should be, the people in power or the higher ups that are supposed to be taking charge for these fines, but in this case, that wasn't it. TD is ruled too big to fail. So they're just such a huge bank that in most circumstances, although the amount of crime that was happening under their noses, it's just they have enough resources to pay off the fines, rebuild, reform, and keep their bank operating in the way that they've always wanted to. Now, the Dodd-Frank Act was done in 2010 after the 2008 financial crisis, which was a law created to prevent a financial crisis with having banks follow stricter rules in order to protect consumers from risky banking practices while holding financial companies more accountable. Post 2008 reform, these examples like the Dodd-Frank Act aim to prevent financial collapse and enhance oversight. TD undermines these acts, though, with failing to correct internal controls and continuing to allow risky behavior. This led to consequences included in eroded customer trust and weakened regulatory institution. So customers were realizing that maybe this just isn't the bank for them to be providing their money into when they're, losing so much money and allowing all these frauds to happen. No consumer is going to want to keep using a bank that has been found guilty of such implications. $1.8 billion in fines, plus compliance mandates and restrictions on branch expansions and dividends. So overall, this just damaged TD's reputation as a whole. But finally, new requirements such as risk reviews, automated monitoring, account closures, and testing monitoring thresholds were placed in order to deregulate high risk transactions that have been happening. Finally, consequences and conclusions. Nearly 3 billion in total penalties and loss of consumer confidence with clients was a big result in TD banking. TD Bank cases this TD Bank case reflects systemic failures while highlighting ongoing tensions between profits and compliance. Without proper insight, trusted institutions can become tools for illegal activity. Trust in such institutions can only return if they do the right thing and if they play by the rules. TD Bank is definitely a bank that we all still use today and we have heard of throughout many, many of years, but that does not mean that in the past they were going against lots and lots of money laundering laws and things that were placed into factor in the financial system in order to prevent such fraud from happening, especially this big of a case and this big of a bank. It was the first bank in the United States to be seen as guilty to such charges, which just made things in the financial system very uneasy for consumers and even for people in power of these institutions. I thank you for coming and listening to my case study. It was great being able to share such information that I have on this case, and I hope you enjoyed and have a great rest of your time. Bye.